For decades, maybe even centuries, people have believed one thing. Men are smarter than women, more logical, better problem solvers, higher IQ. It sounds confident, it sounds scientific. But here's the problem. It's not actually true. And what's more interesting is this. Even when people are shown the data, they still believe it. So the real question is not who is smarter. The real question is, why do we think men are smarter? Because once you understand that, you'll start to see how easily intelligence itself can be misunderstood, and how one small misunderstanding created one of the most persistent myths in modern history. Let's start from the beginning. IQ, intelligence quotient. It sounds like a clean, simple number, a way to measure how smart someone is. But IQ is not what most people think. It doesn't measure intelligence as a whole. It measures specific abilities like pattern recognition, memory, processing speed, logical reasoning. And here's the key. IQ tests are designed so that the average score is always 100. Always. So when researchers test millions of people across different countries, men and women both average almost exactly the same. Let that sink in. Not slightly different, not close, the same. So if the averages are equal, why does the belief exist? This is where things get interesting, because the answer is not in the average, it's in the extremes. There's something called greater male variability, and this is where most people get confused. Studies have shown that men tend to have a wider spread of IQ scores, meaning more men at the very top and more men at the very bottom. Imagine two groups. One is tightly clustered around the middle, the other is more spread out. The second group will naturally have more geniuses, but also more people who struggle. And that's exactly what we see. So when people point to famous male scientists, tech billionaires, historical geniuses, they're only looking at the top. They're ignoring the bottom. If you only judge a group by its highest performers, you're not measuring intelligence, you're measuring visibility. Now, here's where things get nuanced. There are measurable differences between men and women, but not in overall intelligence, in types of cognitive strengths. On average, men tend to perform slightly better in spatial reasoning, mental rotation, navigation. Women tend to perform better in verbal fluency, memory, emotional recognition. So what does that mean? It means intelligence isn't one straight line. It's a spectrum of abilities, and when you average those abilities out, they balance. Now here's where society steps in and distorts everything. For most of history, men were encouraged to pursue math and science. Women were pushed toward communication and caregiving. So what happened? We built a world where certain skills were rewarded more than others, and then we labeled those skills as intelligence. Think about it. If society rewards engineering, physics, finance, and those fields are male-dominated, of course men will appear smarter. But that's not biology. That's structure. Now, let's zoom out. For centuries, women were denied education, denied academic positions, denied research opportunities. Some weren't even allowed to publish under their own name. So when people say most geniuses in history were men, you have to ask who was allowed to participate, because when access is limited, outcomes are predictable. Now, fast forward to today, where access is more equal than ever. What do we see? Women outperform men in school. Women graduate at higher rates. Women dominate many academic fields. If men were naturally more intelligent, this shift wouldn't happen. But it is happening, which tells us something important. Intelligence is not the issue.
So why does the belief still exist? 3 reasons. First, confirmation bias. People notice what supports their belief and ignore what doesn't. Second, visibility bias. We see high-achieving men more often and assume they represent the group. Third, historical inertia. Old beliefs stick, even when the evidence changes. And once a belief becomes cultural, it stops needing proof. So let's answer the question clearly. Are men smarter than women? No. Are women smarter than men? Also no. The truth is simpler and more uncomfortable for people who want a clear winner. Intelligence does not belong to one gender. It's shaped by biology, environment, opportunity, and how we choose to measure it. And maybe the real mistake we've been making all along is trying to turn intelligence into a competition.